All right, greetings everyone. My name is Jeannine Engel. I am a general internal medicine physician and I'm the physician advisor for the Healthcare Compliance Office at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. I have been in this position for just 2 years, and prior to that lived and worked in Nashville, Tennessee at Vanderbilt University. I was not involved in Nashville with the RAC audits, and so this is a relatively new position for me, both here in Salt Lake City and being involved in dealing with the RAC audits. Today I'm going to be talking to you about using the discussion period as part of your RAC process. This is something for us at the University of Utah which is relatively new. We've been doing it for about 9 months, but we feel like it's an important part of our RAC process and our RAC plan. We've had some success, and I hope to share some of those strategies with you today. So it used to be that the most difficult part of patient care was the actual care of the patient and the discharge planning. However, since the RAC audits have begun, there's a completely new post-discharge challenge that has emerged, and that's the actual care of the chart that occurs after our patients have been discharged. So as our patients begin one journey after their hospitalizations, their charts begin an entirely new journey of its own. So while our doctor here seems to be a little confused about where his patient is, I think we can clearly say that our providers now are even more confused about what may be happening to their charts after discharge. So I made up this particular flow chart actually for a completely different presentation several months ago, and I did it actually more for myself to help me have a better understanding of really the timeline of what happens to our charts as they become part of a RAC audit and exactly how long things might be mapped out. So in our hospital, a patient's admitted, and because we're a teaching hospital affiliated with the University of Utah School of Medicine, our residents generally are writing the orders. Our attending physicians are going to be verifying those orders, and our Medicare charts and generally all of our charts are reviewed by our case management and utilization review folks to review those charts for appropriate status. And then at some point in the journey, our patients are discharged from the hospital. Then our patients' charts go through the facility coders and facility billing. And here in our region, we've had some prepayment probes by our MAC. So our charts may get pulled for a prepayment probe. And then hopefully, and usually, our charts are paid. And then, as we all know, 3 months or months to up to 3 years later, those charts can be requested as part of our RAC audit. As we all know, we have a certain amount of time, 45 days, to get our records sent into to the RAC. And then 60 days later, usually, we get our notice, either of our RAC denial or the notice of no finding. At that point, then, there's 120 days to appeal to the MAC if we feel that those medical necessity denials were not appropriate. And then the MAC has about 60 days to get back to us with a denial or an overturn. We have then 180 days to get to the QUIC to appeal, and then 60 days later, we usually get our denials back from the QUIC. We have then 60 days to get our appeal paperwork into our administrative law judge. And then it should be 90 days before our administrative law judge is getting back to us with scheduling of our audio conference. However, as we all know, the ALJ conferences have been delayed all over the country. For that reason, this timeline has been delayed to quite a bit longer. So as I've noted at the bottom, the time from denial to recoupment, assuming that we have a win at the level of the ALJ, is at least 19 months. As we all know, this timeline is being drawn out due to delays and in the timing of these ALJ conferences, so it can be even more months than this. So what I'd like to suggest to you is that perhaps there's a different pathway that you or we could be taking with at least some of our RAC denial. So instead of that uphill trudge, slow trudge in the snow that we have the opportunity to take here in Salt Lake City in the wintertime in our Wasatch Mountain front near the valley, perhaps there's a nice downhill stroll down to the waterfront in the sunshine that you could be taking at least with some of your cases. And that's where perhaps using the discussion period is something that you could be doing. So here's the discussion timeline that I'd like to just show you briefly, and then we'll go into a lot more detail about how to use the discussion and some tips about how to use it successfully. So again, the same things happening with your patient in the hospital, the orders being written, the review, and the patient discharged. And we'll just start right at the payment. Again, months to years later, you'll get your RAC audit request, and you'll send the records, and the RAC will deny it. And now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the discussion period or who haven't used it, there's really two phases to the discussion period. There's initially, there's a